first question I have for you, the foundation, the legislation that was prepared to assess foundations that are not really involved in business, not to pay taxes, where does the St. Martin Development Foundation stand? Are they part of a business? Where do they stand in this legislation?
The legislation does not make any distinction between one foundation over the other. It covers all foundations.
Mm-hmm.
And foundations should be foundations, should not be a profit center.
Mm-hmm.
And the correction that is being made to the legislation that is, compared to the legislation that was adopted last year,
mm-hmm.
Putting the burden on all foundations to file taxes.
Mm-hmm.
The intent of this legislation is to remove that obligation as far as those foundations and associations are concerned who do not operate businesses.
You said you're traveling to Curacao today to meet with the Minister of Finance, and you mentioned the search and the raid of the President of the Central Bank, Mr. Trump. Is St. Martin or Curacao, or would it be on the table that St. Martin and Curacao will now ask Mr. Trump to resign, knowing there's an investigation? Yes, there are allegations, but it's very serious allegation. Are you considering asking him to resign from his post?
No. There has been an allegation made that is being investigated. That investigation could turn out to be one where evidence is produced or where no evidence is produced. So a basis to ask him to resign at this point in time is not there. But what is there is that when you're subject to investigation of this sort, it is improper for you to maintain your position in such a function. And the idea is to put him aside for the duration of the investigation.
If I can ask a follow-up on that, explain a little bit more.
Sure.
When you say put him aside, how do you explain that?
Well,
and that's not my third question.
You suspend people when you don't think that they can conduct the activities that they have to conduct in a manner that is proper and efficient. You cannot function properly as long as that cloud is hanging over you. So as long as that cloud is there, he's going to be suspended until such time that cloud is removed.
Thank you.
That is the intention, and that is the subject of discussion that we're going to have. A final decision has not yet been made.
Thank you for that further explanation. My third question, the Pandora box, the appointment of the...
Could you explain to me what you mean that I opened a Pandora box? I reported to you factually, which I think is my duty and obligation, an explanation of an incident that occurred that was in the news. I didn't open a Pandora box. I just reported the facts as they are.
All right, so I'm going to allow you to report a little bit more of the facts.
I'm not a reporter, and I don't report. I just provide information to the public.
All right, Mr. Gibson, you stated that in the Council of Ministers meeting yesterday, the Minister of TIAT said that she did not appoint the STA director that have become the #1 topic of the news today. I looked at the video, I read a news article. Are we having reporters now on the island that are manufacturing news and even videos? And what for the explanation? If the minister didn't appoint this person, who did? What did she tell the council? Because I assume here would have been the right place for her to inform the people, but she's not here.
Are you grandstanding this morning in this press briefing?
I'm not grandstanding. I'm just asking for more information. The people deserve a right to know.
There is no more information to provide other than to let the public know that the minister has reported to the Council of Ministers that a formal appointment of this gentleman has not taken place, that she did not appoint him formally to that position. That's the extent of the information that I have, and that's the extent of the information that I'm sharing. Now, to ask me to speculate as to how
No,
reporters
I'm not asking you to
function.
speculate.
Well, you did ask me to speculate because you asked me, is it that reporters now just make videos and that you saw? I mean, I don't know what you saw or did not see, but I don't think it's in my place to speculate as to how reporters function or does not function. My job is simply, coldly, soberly, to give you the facts as I know it.
As you were told.
No, as I experienced it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Mr. Hart, any questions for you?
Yes. Minister Gibson, to continue with the STA matter, is the position of director of the Tourism Authority considered a so-called vertrouwensfunctie?
No, it's not. Bear in mind that at the time that this law was adopted, and the organizations and companies and positions which were incorporated in that law did not include this particular position because an STA did not exist until recently. So it's not one of those functions. Nevertheless, there are certain standards that we have to meet, and there are certain expectations you have for someone who is going to occupy such a position, and they've got to meet those standards. Not accusing the person of anything. The evidence got to be on the table, and if the evidence is there, then I think it is expected that someone who did such a thing would not qualify for such a position because they wouldn't if this particular position was also included in the law.
Okay. The budget 2017, where are we with that?
Running fast, trying to meet the deadline. If you really asking what is my estimate in terms of meeting the deadline, I have all hope that we will meet the deadline. We still have some obstacles to overcome, but I think that we can overcome them, and that a budget will be presented to the Council of Ministers. I believe that sincerely that that's going to happen.
And when about?
Well, our deadline is September 1st.
Minister Jacobs, the ACE Foundation is in a bit of a spot because they have to leave the building that they currently occupy by October 3. Now, I understood from the court case that all the kids that go there are actually properly registered. So if things go completely south, could these kids be absorbed in the public school system?
Good morning. I do not know yet how many students we're talking about in the sense of how many students are registered at the ACE Foundation.
About 40.
The ACE Foundation is not one of the schools that is recognized as a school, is subsidized by government or anything of the sort. Yes, because of compulsory education, the students who reach the age that they would take the exit exams are allowed to take it, and we do our best to place them. Several of the students who have not yet been placed are students who sat the exam from the ACE Foundation, so I don't know if they are counted with the 40. As far as the report I've received, they haven't, 7 have not registered at the school where they were placed as yet, while other schools are also still looking at placing them. As it pertains to the younger ones that would be then in the elementary public schools, because the only other fully public school is a vocational high school. The elementary schools, I have not heard that they are completely full as yet, but as I said, this process of the start of school has just started, so I have not gotten an overview as yet as to space and availability for other students to be able to come in. What I think we need to keep in mind, however, is that immigration and the lack of control there continues to play a huge burden and put a huge burden on the education budget. Because once we have more students, we will need more teachers, we will need more spaces, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And at any given year, you're not sure of what you have, and they come in all during the year as well. So this has been one of the actual issues and challenges that the schools have been facing that has been brought to me in the past, but again, much stronger this year since January coming down, as many of you know. And so we've had the discussions also with the Justice Department, and they have claimed that students who overstay, because the problem that a lot of the schools had were children coming in on visitors visas or vacationing visas and overstaying. And so then this is actually the job of the Justice Department to do the follow-up that they need to do, because they have cards on all of these children that come in. However, the legalities of the laws as it pertains to the reuniting of families can be used if the parent has the residency permit. So when you stated that all of the children who are the ACE Foundation right now are properly registered, is that what you meant? That they are all...
That's what I understood in the court case, that they're all been registered at the immigration department. So then I would think, we know they're there, they're not going anywhere, they have a right to education. And if that school falls for some reason because they cannot find accommodation, Ms. Elshot, I think she actually asked if she could use the Leopold Bell School, but I don't think that
that school is online to be renovated,
yeah.
And is not quite ready for anyone to be used at this moment. But the issue the ministry has clearly stated in years gone by, and I don't know if we didn't really state it this year, but parents are asked to register their children at the schools that are regulated, and then we would be able to know in advance whether we have space for them or not. That these schools in the past have, cropped up and have existed. After compulsory education, many of them either closed down or diminished to the point where it was not feasible anymore to operate them as such, as these children were allowed into the regular system. So all I can say to the students of those schools and the parents is to register if they are unable to be placed at this point, to go to the inspectorate and to the public schools to seek space, okay, if they are properly registered students, if that is the case, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hilbert. Before I continue, just let me acknowledge the presence of Minister Angel Myers this morning. Morning, Minister. Morning. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Alita.
Thank you, Marsha. Good morning, ministers. Minister Gibson, last week you were also in Curacao to meet with the finance minister, and one of the topics was, of course, the division of assets. What is the current situation on that?
Yeah, I am pendling a lot between St. Martin and Curacao, trying to get things organized and get them on the right track. And we've made a lot of progress, I can report. We actually have reached an understanding that is now being put on paper and will be sent to the Dutch government. As you know, the three governments are involved in this. But to be a little more specific and clear, there was a proposal made by the Dutch government. That proposal was discussed over and over again between the Minister of Finance of St. Martin and that of Curacao. And the end result is that that proposal, we reach an understanding that we will accept that proposal. So there are no issues anymore remaining. It's a question now of reducing that to writing and signing it, and it's done.
Okay. Can you give more details on what that proposal exactly entails?
It entails that we will get in excess of 60 million.
Of course, the 13th is passed now. What is the situation with the casino collection of the outstanding casino fees?
I'm pleased to report that on Wednesday last week at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon, I personally went over to the offices of the island receiver and hand-delivered all of the documentation that opens the door and removes all the barriers that existed before to enable the receiver to collect all outstanding casino taxes. And I thank you very much for that question.
Do I have one more? Right. The Parliament is scheduled to handle an amendment to the LTU, which will make fees for residency permits that are denied to make them not refundable any longer. Can you give me an idea of how much money that will keep in the coffers of government? I know it's under the Justice Minister, but you do deal with the money.
Yes, you're correct. It falls under the Justice Minister, and I would kindly ask you to save that question and direct it to him so he can provide you the details on it. Those details I do not have readily available for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alita. Members of the media, is there a request for second round? Bibi? Go right ahead.
Minister Gibson, I want to go back to the foundations so that I can get it a little bit clearer. Foundations that are not, that would be eliminated from paying taxes or filing for taxes, do they, and I'm speaking about those that are getting government subsidy, do they still have to also provide their audited financial statements in order to get the government subsidy that they get every year?
Well, I thank you for that question, too. The organizations that are subsidized have the duty and responsibility to give an account to government as to how they spend the taxpayers' money that has been made available to them in subsidies. Previously, they all were under the obligation to provide audited statements of their expenditures. That proved to be a hardship and actually to a big degree a waste of money because they had to pay annually $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to accounting firms to get their statements audited. The rule was at that time that subsidies in excess of 25,000 guilders have to provide audited financial statements. We have recently, a couple of weeks ago, presented the Council of Ministers with an amendment to that regulation, raising the amount from 25,000 guilders to 250,000 guilders. So all those foundations who receive less than 250,000 guilders no longer have to go and take the money that they receive and pay it out to get audited statements. We still will require a clear accounting from them, but that accounting will now be done by the Department of Finances, and that, of course, will be free of charge. So that money that they were spending before, they can now use to assist in the goal that they're attempting to do in each of the foundation, goes back to the members, goes back to the help that they need in those foundations. Foundations who do not engage in businesses, of course, do not have to file, like I explained before. Only those foundations who are engaged in operating businesses will have to file their taxes annually.
Thank you so much, Minister Gibson. Minister Jacobs, the situation with the school bus drivers, school is now open. Where are we with the discussions? I know you said the last time that there were meetings still ongoing. Where are we? School reopened, and is there a final decision as to what will government do now with regards to school bus drivers that are being paid by government?
School bus operators continue to operate as they have in the past. The discussion is that they have received the policy and SLA draft in the last discussions that were held, and the next meeting that was supposed to be held, or the subsequent meeting to discuss their feedback, was not held at the end of at the beginning of August. It was scheduled for the first week of August and was postponed until it will be held in the week of the last week of August instead. So that meeting to discuss the feedback with them on what was presented has not yet been held and is scheduled to be held in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Minister Jacobs. I now turn to Minister Myers. Minister Myers, the situation with garbage collection, of course, I'm sure you probably heard about the contractors for parcel 5 and 6 spoke out about the dumping, the illegal dumping. We even have the Nature Foundation sent out a release on illegal dumping. Where are we with this? You said you were going to monitor. There were going to be more inspectors. A lot, even garbage bin, they said that they requested and they have not gotten yet from government. What update can you give us on the garbage bin and generally on the collection of garbage?
Good morning. Thank you, Bibi, for that question. Pertaining to the garbage situation, specifically for parcel 5 and 6, I did get a update from the department responsible for inspecting and so forth, and they indicated, they brought forward a proposal if they could, in the interim, get additional personnel, because the district cleaning contracts, as you all know, was signed off last week. So additional contracts with the limited personnel to monitor everything seems to be a bottleneck. From the feedback I've been getting so far, there is improvements in the garbage collection situation. It's not where we want it to be, but there are improvements. What you just mentioned about the illegal dumping, I have just what I read in the news papers and so forth, but I have not gotten a report from the department and such. We are continuing to monitor, to give pressure where necessary for improvements. And on my part, I will see what can be done to assist the departments so that they have the equipment and the personnel needed to carry out the inspections.
Can I get a follow-up?
No, at this point, I would like to ask if Hilbert or Alita have any further questions.
Yeah, I do.
Let Hilbert go first.
Yeah. Minister Lee, could you confirm that we talk about the medical tourism project of the let's call it the project of the UP, that in that project that medical tourism wing would be given to the Ted Allen Company and his American business associates?
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly which company. I have, yeah, I couldn't verify for sure the exact name of the company.
Okay, thank you. That was
Bibi, allow the question.
Minister, the situation with the garbage, and like I asked about the bins, you haven't said anything about the bins. Do we have the bins? Are we going to get the bins? And you said you didn't get any kind of, how do you say, feedback from the department. Are you going to be looking for a feedback on this situation? And my other question I really want to ask you is that I got a press release about the parking garage by Kim Shaw. And I asked you this a couple of weeks ago about that parking garage, that private parking garage that is supposed to be built. A building permit was requested in Simpson Bay by the marina to be built specifically for the marine industry. Do you know if the Department of Romy issued a building permit for that private parking garage that I said would have also a semi-boardwalk? You said you didn't know about it and you were going to check. And this is supposed to be in Simpson Bay, not far away from the gas station.
Okay. Coming back to the question about the bins, the contractors need to indicate to the department, to the ministry, what bins they need. And once that information comes in, the bins will be ordered. I cannot verify and say for certainty if that was done already, but In any case, if the contractors indicated, listen, we need X amount of bins, the department will ensure that those bins are ordered and delivered in a timely fashion. Concerning the private parking garage in Simpson Bay, to my knowledge, I have not seen a permit request for a private parking garage in Simpson Bay. I know of a permit request for a marina in the vicinity of the gas station on the airport road, but I cannot say for certainty if a private parking garage was included in that project. I know it was for a marina and for some apartments.